I remember phasing over to phase 2, and we had this short female black cat. He had us do 300 overhand claps. 300 overhand claps. That probably was the only time I ever counted 300 in my life, and I'm 28. Airsoft school is one of the most tough, physically demanding 10-level schools out there. The course is 10 days, and it's broken down into 3 phases. I attended airsoft school as a specialist stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. And today I'm going to be sharing my experiences with you. But don't go nowhere. Watch it all the way to the end, because at the end, I'm going to give you pointers on what you should do in order to be successful when you go. So let's get into it. For those of you that don't know what airsoft school is, I'm going to tell you, and then we're going to get into my story. Airsoft training focuses on the mastery of rappelling techniques and sling load procedures. It also gives you skills and teaches you skills, that involve intense concentration and a commitment to safety and preparation. Long story short, attention to detail. That's really what you hear about when someone mentions airsoft school. So there I was, a specialist at Fort Hood. I had already PCS from Korea. I was stationed in the PLL shop, and I would like to say my first year of being there, I had already established a name for myself, because I competed in Soldier of the Month, Brigade Soldier of the Month, and then I went to compete in the Post Soldier of the Year competition. So already there was eyes on me in a good way. I worked in a PLL shop with Specialist Lopez and my NCO Sergeant Anderson. And Lopez also had a great name for himself. He actually led the way for me to come in and just kind of do everything that he was doing. And he was a great battle buddy. He taught me my job, and he taught me, hey, this is what you need to do. You need to score 300 on PT score. And he was a great battle buddy and in the long term, a great mentor to me. My NCO sat me and Specialist Lopez down, and he said, hey, do anybody want to go to airsoft school? We both raised our hand. So it all started from there. My NCO looks at both of us and he said, you know what? Well, I'm going to send Lopez first, because he was here the longest, and he's also about to go to the promotion board. So I think that'd be best for him to go first. And then Specialist Miles, I'll send you. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, that's my boy. Let him go. And I actually think that's better, because he's going to go and teach me everything that I need to know. He's just going to relay that knowledge back to me. So I was like, yeah, let him go. So he went off to airsoft school, and we were all hoping the best. We were like, oh yeah, Lopez, you're talking about 340 APFT score, smart in his job. He know his job. Just everyone is rooting for him. It was like a week after him being there. Phase 2. The sling load phase. He comes back in the office, and I'm like, what are you doing here? What happened? You good? And he's like, I failed sling loads. So at that time, I'm like, bro, what? This is the smartest guy I've ever met. Wow. So he failed, and then it was my turn to go. So I went probably a month after him, and the whole time, replaying in my mind that sling loads. Sling loads was one of the most anticipated events in airsoft school, because that's what everybody talk about. Oh, you'll pass everything, but you just got to pass sling load. Once you pass sling load, it's downhill from there. So I arrived to airsoft school, which was literally around the corner from where I worked at. I got my duffel bags, because you got a packing list. I got everything I need to in process and to enroll into airsoft school. So it's day 1, and I remember like yesterday. It's day 1, and the black hats, they call them black hats, calling out the names of the people that's going to be in school. And they're, you got people on the sideline that are standbys to get into school just in case someone didn't show up. And I'm standing there at parade rest or whatever, and it's this specialist beside me. He's chewing gum. So the black hat that was standing on the side, while the black hat in the front was calling out the rosters for who's going to be enrolled in school, this guy's chewing gum. The black hat walks up to him smooth, get close to him, get in his ear, and he's like, are you chewing gum? And the specialist was like, yes, Sergeant. He was like, spit it out. So mind you, we're standing in rocks. There's no dirt or nothing. We're standing in rocks. So he spits the gum out. And then the black hat says, did you spit? I don't know what was up with those rocks. He was like, did you spit your gum out in my rocks? And the specialist just stood there. He was like, yes, Sergeant. He was like, listen, You got until that black hat in the front of this formation is done with this roster for you to find that freaking gum. And if he calls your name and you haven't found that gum, you have until he's done with that list to get in formation and be standing where you need to be standing. So he called. The next thing you know, my name get called. I go run to formation. This, all I could see, everybody trying to like look like side eye, like, you know how you be in formation but you want to watch. All we see is this guy in the rocks, like moving them rocks, trying to find that gum. He finally finds the gum, and then his name got called, thank God, and he ran to the formation. So that was like not even day 0 of airsoft school. That was like in processing day. So after they did the roster call and they got everybody in process or whatever the case may be, they gave us a list and they told us pretty much like, hey, your packing list will be labeled exactly how this sheet says, and everything is going to start tomorrow. So they cut us off, and the next day, which happened to be day 1, is when things got a little heated. So we did the obstacle course, and after the obstacle course, we had a layout. All I can remember is this guy next to me, he was so messed up. He had at least gotten like 25 points deducted because he didn't have something simple as your gear needs to be as worn. So what that means is if you have a OCP top or OCP bottom, you need to have it zipped up, buttoned up, because that's how the uniform is worn when you have it on. So just simple stuff. And there was a guy, in the next row that was missing items. So I seen people get kicked out on day 1 just because they didn't have items on a packing list and because they didn't have it labeled correctly. So moving on, as you already know, the second day is the 6 mile. 6 mile for me was easy. I completed it in a reasonable amount of time. I think I completed it honestly in 1 hour and 15. The time frame that you have to complete it in is 1 hour and 30 minutes. I think I completed like 1 hour and 15. But what was a challenge for me was the test. So the first airsoft test, I failed. Long story short, it was time to take the test and I failed it. And it said, if I call your name out, you're going to have to retake the test. And I was one of the names that they called out. I think it was like 3 of us. And I'm sitting there studying. And the main part that had me really messed up was the fact that you take a test, you fail it. The next day, they're teaching you the information that's needed for the second test. So the whole time I'm learning about this second test type information, all I'm thinking in my head is, I need to pass the first test. I need to pass the first test. So as you know, the next day came. In the morning, those who needed to retest, we had to come in 1 hour early. I retest, pass. Okay, cool, I'm in there. Now, the next hour, I come back, I got to take the second test. So I took the second test, y'all. I failed that too. So I'm like, oh my goodness, like, this is crazy. Went and took the second test. Passed it. I passed the second test, y'all. So just like basic training, whenever you phased over, you get fucked up, right? So I remember phasing over to phase 2, and we had this short female black hat. I mean, she was very like a go-getter. Like everybody knew that she held her weight, and she was one of those females that we knew was out here grinding. And she had a lot of respect. So something happened. They got us in formation. They had us spaced out. And you already know what that is. Front back goes. They had us do front back goes. And she took over. Yo, when I say nobody messed with her after she took over. She had us do 300 overhand claps. I'm talking about she doing it with us now. And we just like, is she ever gonna stop? She did 300 overhand claps. I'm like, this is all we doing today? Cause what? I probably counted to 300 probably once in my life. I can't even tell you, that probably was the only time I ever counted 300 in my life, and I'm 28. So I remember that very, very well. That is the celebration that we got for going into phase 2 of airsoft school. So here we are. I made it to phase 2, sling loads. the most anticipated phase in airsoft school. So when they're teaching us, when you go from phase 1 to phase 2, everything is hands-on. So you're going to inspect, the A22 cargo bag. You're going to inspect these tires. You're going to inspect this water buffalo. There's stations where they're teaching you how to inspect the load, because the load has to be inspected prior to it being hooked up to the actual aircraft. And they teach you about the dynamics, the characteristics, how to inspect it. It's attention to detail. And 90% of people fail airsoft school due to sling load. So it's a lot of pressure. But now that I'm thinking back on it, I noticed that a lot of people didn't take advantage of their time. One thing about me, anytime I'm in a school, I make sure I stay late to study more. And they allowed that. In airsoft school at Fort Hood, they allowed you to stay late and actually practice doing your sequence on the loads. So it was like me at that time. I had already gained 2 friends in airsoft school. It was another specialist and it was a sergeant. We stayed late all the way up until it was time to test out 4 sling loads. So here we are. Obviously, at some point you got to test out. So it's test day for the sling loads, and I'm ready to go. I feel like the extra time that I put in staying after class to practice the sequence and ask questions to the black hats, I feel like that gave me the confidence that I needed to go in and kill it. So I think I had to inspect 4 loads. 4 loads. I inspected the tires, the water buffalo, the A22 cargo bag. Ooh, I cannot remember the last one, y'all. I cannot remember the last one. But I had to inspect 4 loads. And I remember which one I messed up on. It was that A22 cargo bag. I remember I was going to inspect. And what you have to do is, when you're inspecting, you have to say deficiency. So when you see, it's like 2 minor, 1 major. So I'm going through, I'm saying deficiency. I said deficiency. He tallied it, got it. Going through deficiency. I don't know what happened, but I said deficiency twice. And he said, at this time, you are a no-go. And I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't mean to say deficiency twice. So I was at my second deficiency, but I said deficiency twice for some reason. I don't even know. But it happened. And he was like, at this time, you're going to go to the retesting station and you're going to study for like 30 minutes. And then we're going to call you back and we're going to retest you. So here I am sitting under this tent. I'm like, this is it. This is it. So they came to the retest area and then they were like, Specialist Miles, are you ready to retest? And I was like, yes, I'm ready to retest. I went to retest on the A22 cargo bag and I passed. So I honestly, when they said I passed, because at that time, there was like, once you pass sling load, you're done for the rest of the day. So I remember running. Y'all, I did a cartwheel. I was so happy. I was so happy. So phase 3 of airsoft school, like I previously talked about, anytime you phase over into anything, it's going to be a celebration. It may not be the kind of celebration you want, but it's going to be a celebration. I remember it was pouring down, raining. And this rappel week, this is the week where they teach you how to rappel or fast rope down the UA-60 Blackhawk, and stuff like that. So I remember it was a black hat. It was 3 male black hats, and I don't know, just playing that vision in my head, I could just see them standing there. They told us fall in, and they're just standing there, had their hat low, and it's raining. You could see like the drips of rain coming from the brim of their black hat, and they're just standing there. We did PT, and it was rifle PT. So all I remember is just in the rain, holding their weapon and our feet up. And I mean, they're just like 1, 2, 3 in cadence. And they were just making us do rifle PT. And if you ever done rifle PT in airsoft school, you know what I'm talking about. It's deadly. It's crucial. I'm talking about my body was sore probably a year after airsoft school. Like, it was crazy. So they just sitting there. And I'm talking about, they don't do no 50 count, 10 count. Like I said, they in the 300s. That got to be their starting minimum number. But rappel week was very fun. I will say this. I am afraid of heights. I don't know if I said that in the beginning. I don't know if I said that ever. but I'm afraid of heights. Rappel week was awesome. It was the last phase before the big event of the 12K. But I learned so much about myself. I learned how to have a steady calm over emotion. I was very nervous about rappelling down that UH-60 Black Hawk because I'm afraid of heights. A lot of people look at me and say, you know, you're air assault, airborne qualified. How are you afraid of heights? I am afraid of heights, but I'm not afraid to face my fears and look my fears straight in the face and say, you know what, today you will be defeated. I'm not going to say every day you're going to be defeated, but today you're going to be defeated. And I know that I wanted to advance in my career, so I did what I had to do. That was a graduation requirement, so I did it. I see many people turtle down the Black Hawk, and that was pretty funny. But I did it, and I'm proud of myself for doing it. So here we are. It's the last event of Air Assault School, which is, as you know, drum roll please, the 12K. Listen, I had two battle buddies like I talked about earlier that I got really close with in Air Assault School, the specialist and the sergeant. And we told ourselves we're going to run. They had poles. So it was 12 miles, 6 miles there, 6 miles back. And they had poles. And we say, you know what we're going to do is we're going to run every other pole. Well, the specialist the night before he went to a bar and he got drunk. He ended up cramping on like the 8th mile. If we didn't have that item, then that 12 mile never happened. So y'all, I kid you not. I'm looking at the clock. It's 2 hours and 56 minutes has passed on this clock. You got to come in your 12 mile in 3 hours. 3 hours or less. And I'm not going to lie, I look back and I'm like, man, like, come on, fight through this. Like, we on mile 8. We said we was going to finish together, like, but it did not happen like that. I ended up leaving him to continue on and finish the 12K. So at the 6 mile mark, they gave us an item that we had to bring with us to the finish line. So I'm running, boom, boom, boom. I stand there. Now at this point, it's 2 hours and 57 minutes is on the clock. I'm searching through my pockets. I could not find that one item, y'all. I'm sitting there just looking. Next thing you know, I find the item. The black cat looked at me while I'm searching my pockets. He's like, listen, if you don't find this item when that clock's hit 3 hours, you're disqualified and you got to go home. You're done. Y'all, I found it in my lower pocket, pulled it out, gave it to him. Y'all, the clock stopped at 2:58. I walked over to the area where they were doing the layout. I was so happy. He was like, at this time, lay your gear out and we're going to do our last and final inspection. I'm laying my gear out, good to go. Y'all, I seen a chief. I remember like yesterday. It was a chief beside me. I can't remember who was on the right of me. But we're laying out our gear and we already know it has to be laid out a certain way. Everything has to be shown. Everything has to be just right dressed. We already know this because randomly throughout the Air Assault School, you'll do inspections. So I remember like yesterday, the black cat said, hold up your beanie. I held up the beanie. Everybody beside me held up the beanie except for the person to my left. All I see is the person on my left just going through his gear, throwing stuff. Like, because this was the last item. He could not find his beanie. The black hat walked up to him and said, sir, at this time you have been disqualified from Air Assault School. You may pack up your things and go. Bro, what? He just finished everything. Wow. And I just was in shock. I'm like, damn, like this shit is real. They really would kick you out on the last day? That's wild to me. So they kicked him out. And the layout was done. I packed up my bags and they said, hey, congratulations. I'll see you all tomorrow. You're going to get your wings tomorrow. Congratulations. And that pretty much was my Air Assault School experience. Very, very intense, very demanding. But I think, you know, I learned a lot about myself, and that was one of the most challenging schools that I've ever been to as a lower enlisted. So now that I've told you my story about Air Assault School, I do want to give a few pointers. The first point I want to give you is to drink a lot of water prior to going to Air Assault School, and you need to work out. You need to train, and work out. You need to have good study habits in play, and you need to actually exercise those study habits and good note-taking material. When I went through the Black Hats, they would say if you have questions, ask, but most of the time, they need to get through over 100 pages of information, so you probably have to ask that question after the class that day. But you need to have good note-taking material. They give you this book where you can take notes. Working out, having good study habits, and good note-taking material. Those are the 3 advice that I would like to give anyone that's going to be attending airsoft school, or anyone that's preparing to go to airsoft school. Another thing that I would like to add is the packing list. Whatever they say pack, you need to have all those items. However they say that you need to label your stuff, team up with someone that's in the course with you. I teamed up with a staff sergeant, and he took me under his wing. That is the advice that I would like to give you all, and I hope that this video was some type of entertainment, but at the same time gave you some type of insight of what you can expect and how you can prepare for airsoft school. My name is Donnell Miles. Peace, love, and happiness.